It feels like AI can do everything. Write the code, analyze the data. It can even suggest your next move. But there's one thing AI can't do. Think for your people. With AI, the real advantage isn't the tools. Anyone can do that. The real advantage is human readiness. That's why the smartest companies aren't asking, do we have AI? They're asking, can our people keep up? To build a learning program that keeps your people ahead, learn with Docebo. Docebo. Never stop learning.
As men, we need to become the man that walks into the storm and calms it. We need to be the man who walks into the room and changes the energy through his regulation. We need to be the man that when you take a deep breath, her body is in such a level of attunement to you that she takes a deep breath and comes with you. I hold out the undying belief that with the right tools and the right process and the right understanding of what's going on, any man can become this man. It's not just me. It's not just you. It's all of us. But we have been conditioned and traumatized and told the wrong thing and told we're doing good when we're really screwing things up. And if we understand this process, that entire paradigm can shift to where we stop being the problem and we become the solution.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 339, and we're going to do something a little bit different here today. I've got someone who is truly one of my dearest friends, and he's been there with me through some of my darkest days. But today we're going to talk about something else. Wonder if you've ever found yourself wondering why a conversation that should have brought you closer somehow created more distance. If you've ever felt like you were trying to do the right thing, but the impact just didn't match your intent somehow. If you've ever sensed that leadership, connection, and presence require something deeper than tactics, then this episode might already be working inside of you. Because today isn't about fixing anything. It isn't about seeing something. It isn't about inventing something new. It's about something deeper than that. So my guest today is literally a brother to me. His name is Alex Charfen. And this is one of those conversations that in another season of life, we would have finished and said, we should have recorded that. But this time we did. And I'm so grateful that we did so that we can share it with you. Over the past few years, Alex stepped away from business, noise, and performance. He was a very sought after and probably one of the most sought after business and CEO coaches on the planet. And he walked into something more confronting, more personal, more meaningful. He was holding himself steady in moments that matter most. And we're going to talk about what those moments are, but what emerged from that work is captured on today's conversation. It's a napkin for me, for Alex. It is what is masculine containment. And as you listen to this conversation, you might notice your own definitions begin to loosen. You might notice moments where something clicks, not intellectually, but physically. You might even find yourself recognizing patterns, not to judge them, but to understand them a little bit more, because this conversation isn't asking you to become someone else or to mirror someone else or to learn something that's not already deep inside you. It's inviting you to become more you, regulated, present, and grounded, and powerful in a way that doesn't need to prove itself. So as you listen, you don't have to agree with everything. You don't even have to do anything right away. Just notice what stands out. Notice what resonates, and notice what stays with you long after the words pass. Let's dive into my conversation with Alex.
My brother, Alex Charfen. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Actually doing fantastic, like maybe better than I ever have. It's so good to see you, dude.
Yes. Well, I mean, look, that's kind of fake because Alex and I talk all the time. And,
but it's always good to see you.
It's always good to see you. And you know, we've been leaning into each other weekly for way longer than, I think we debated whether it's 11 years or 14 years or however long it's
Whatever
been.
it is.
Whatever it is, it's been a magical period of time. And we've often said to each other along this time that, oh man, that was recording that was a conversation I wish we recorded because I'd like to go back to it. And so today we're doing it intentionally. And I'm really thrilled about that. So thanks, Alex.
It's my pleasure, man. I hope it still works now that we hit record and we don't get weird.
We'll probably get weird. We'll start drooling or something like that. It'll be all over in about 5 seconds.
Oh no, we hit record. Everything's weird. I'm just
So you have been doing, well, okay. So you went offline entirely from business about 3 and a bit years ago. And you did that 2 and a bit years ago? Okay.
Yeah.
So 2 and a bit years ago, you went offline entirely. You focused in on your relationship. You went on sabbatical. And that sounds kind of sexy and fun, but it didn't come out of a sexy and fun place, did it?
I mean, yeah, no. You know, I've been with my wife Katie for 22 years. We've been married for 20 last December. And years ago, before we went on sabbatical, there was a point where we were having a conversation, and she said, you know, I don't feel heard, I don't feel seen, and I don't feel safe, and I can't do this anymore. Something needs to change. And dude, I thought we were doing fine. Like, I didn't know things were that bad, and I didn't know that's what was really going on for her. And it's like the most gracious thing she's ever done to make it that clear, because it kicked off this level of obsession of like, I'm going to fix this, like no matter what, you know? And it was interesting, Govan, because I asked what I think, you know, anybody would ask. Okay, like, what do you need? Tell me, like, how do I fix this? And she didn't know. I don't know, but I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard, and I don't feel safe. And I'm like, okay, well, just like anything else that's ever happened in my relationship or anything that's happened medically with Katie or anything that's like going on with her, I get super obsessed over it. And I started doing a ton of research. So I was running this like company, Simple Operations, and I got myself down to where I was working like 12 hours a week in that business. And all my other time was going to like, how do I fix this? And I was reading books and watching videos and articles and really trying to understand. And things got better, definitely got better with some coaching and stuff that we did. But I couldn't figure out the root cause of the problem until we went on sabbatical. And really, this all started out of medicine journeys. You know, my wife and I have sat with psychedelics, and we've worked with MDMA, LSD. I worked with LSD, then mushrooms. But then we started sitting with ayahuasca in January of 2023. And it was this opening to like this whole new chapter of my life. Because from the very beginning, I was shown like where I was misstepping, and I was given information about how I could do better. And, you know, the initial ceremonies that we did in January 2023, what came out of it was like, I needed to be in devotion to Katie. And the more that I devoted myself to her, the more my life would be what I wanted it to be. And honestly, I didn't understand what that meant. And so I really started sitting with it, and we started in January 2023. We took a long time off, like 6 months, to integrate those first experiences. And we went back towards the end of the year a few times. And in December, we had another series of ceremonies, and I came out of them, and it was the most disrupted I've ever been, the most dysregulated I've ever been. It was right before Christmas. I look back and I'm like, what were we doing? Because like right before Christmas, we go to these ceremonies, and I'm just like out of my head, dysregulated. And I was sitting with it and spending time in neutral and going on walks and trying to figure out what was going on. And a few days later, this message came through that I needed to sit down with Katie every day and hold my center and let her say whatever she needed to say. And I was terrified. It was like a scary message to receive. Like, I need to hold my center and let her say whatever she needs to say. But I believed it. I hit the I believe button, and I'm like, okay. December 26, 2023, I set up some bolsters in our bedroom and moved some stuff around in the house and kind of created a ceremony space. And the two of us sat down, And I said, we're going to do this every day. And this is coming from the ceremony. So it feels like it's really important. And we started sitting down every day.
How do you measure learning success? By courses completed or by real improvements to skill, productivity, and revenue? See, learning isn't about passive consumption. Learning is about doing. Docebo makes it easy to create, manage, and deliver learning to every audience across the entire skills journey. Your learners will adapt faster, get more done, and grow their skills, organization, and careers. Docebo, never stop learning.
And it was kind of extraordinary, difficult, like the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was extraordinary because it created a safe space for Katie to really tell me what was going on and to be transparent and real with me. Not immediately, but over the next few days, a lot of stuff started coming out. And I held my center, and at the very beginning, that's just about all I could do. I just sat there almost white knuckling, thinking when is this going to end? Is this going to last forever? I actually felt like mortal danger because she was telling me how I had misstepped in our relationship and I had made her feel unseen and unheard. And she started giving me details that were really, really difficult to hear. She said things like there were times sexually where she felt like I wasn't present and I wasn't in the room and I was disassociated and that really hurt her and it caused her to disassociate. She told me there was times where she felt like I took advantage of the situation and she said no and I just kept pressing and I'm really persuasive and that really bothered her afterwards and stayed in her body. And I'm sitting there listening to these things and Govind, I wanted so hard to say, that's not what I meant. And that's not what I intended. And that's not how I wanted it to be. And, there was this little voice in me that's defend and get justice and, tell her what's
She's wrong. I didn't mean that.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't. I sat and I listened and I slowed things down and I really, really stayed in the moment. And I started realizing everything she was telling me was true. It was her truth. It might not have been what I believed, but the more that she talked and the more I started believing exactly what she was saying. And I also realized her truth is what's important here. And any move to correct or, tell her what I meant or not anything other than hearing her and validating her was actually invalidating her. And that's what I had done over and over again in our marriage. We had this pattern that so many heterosexual relationships have where there's a trigger and an escalation, and then there's damage done, then there's a withdrawal period, and then you repair. And for us as men, that actually feels productive. We're built for that. We're built to identify conflict, neutralize threat, move on. Our bodies go right back to baseline and we're good. But in a
Which is why a bunch of guys can tell each other to fuck off and
it doesn't
be
matter.
Friends the next minute.
Yeah, and it doesn't we get into conflict and then we're patting each other on the back afterwards. But in your home, with the person who's most important to you, what I discovered over the past couple years in looking at science and ancient textbooks and modern neurology and, belief systems throughout history is that if you really slow things down and you look at a male-female relationship, the feminine nervous system, the woman's nervous system doesn't respond the same way. Women are programmed for threat detection and protection and safety and to keep the baby alive, that their bodies actually see conflict as a mortal threat.
But let's also, before we move off of that, that's scientifically shown in the fact that women have better taste buds than men do, better sense of smell, better sense of hearing, and better sense of sight. In fact, sight, many people don't know this, but the point of recognition of someone being safe is someone's gait, the way in which they walk, not their stride per se, but sort of the entire way they carry their body and the way they walk. And that women can see this up to 30% greater distance than men can.
Yeah.
So think about that.
It's so much more than that, Govind. Again, modern science doesn't support this and doesn't really even talk about this because I think modern science has a unspoken and maybe in a lot of cases spoken goal of making everybody the same and making everyone equal and men and women are the same and we're all, we all have the same opportunities. We all have the same everything. And in so many ways, I believe that. We're equal in the eyes of the law. We're equal in the opportunity we can produce. We're equal in what we can achieve in the world. But in a heterosexual relationship, we are not equal. And saying that in so many circles, it's heresy. It's like, you can't say that. You can't say that men and women aren't equal. But the reality is we're not. And when you look at relationships between men and women, when there's conflict, we return to baseline quickly, but because a woman is like literally programmed to identify threat, and it's not just visually, like women are intuitive machines. Like they feel, they understand, they have a knowing. They know what's going on before they actually can verbalize it, but they're feeling it in their body. I know I coached women for years. We had a mastermind that was, business owners, and most of the time it was over 50% women. And the way that they process was so much different than men. And when you look at their body chemistry, when there's a threat, when there's a conflict, cortisols go up, all the threat detection chemicals go up, and their body takes forever to return to baseline. And what happens in a relationship, if you repeat that pattern I talked about over and over again, their body does not return to baseline for a while, and then it doesn't return to baseline, and then the conflicts start linking together, and their body never gets back to baseline. And when they're in that place of feeling threatened and unseen and unheard, and there's all those protection chemicals, this is biology. This is like scientific reality. You can't argue with this if you really look at the difference between our nervous systems and our reactions. And if women continue to feel like that, here's the incredibly challenging thing that happens. She can love you intellectually. She can logically know that you are safe and okay. But if her body and her nervous system is saying something different, she shuts down. And shutdown can look like a loss of attraction, a loss of intimacy, pain in the body, illness. It can look like pain during intimacy. It can look like numbness, like an inability to connect. And all of those things are brought on by this continual feeling of threat. And
because you actually become the threat to them.
Well, here's the reality, Govin. I'll ask you the same questions that I ask every man. So if you look at the relationship between you and Stacy, and you look at the two of you, is your wife stronger than you are? Is she more physically capable than you are? Is she more capable of violence? Absolutely not, right? It's like the hardest no.
No, I mean, it's hard to admit that, though.
100%, because here's the reality. We represent a real threat to her nervous system, and the opposite is not true. She does not represent a threat to us at all. And so what I realized, in this moment of introspection that was so difficult and so painful, is one of those things that comes through and you want to deny it and push it away and be like, no, let's figure something else out. But what I realized was, if I'm reacting to her as though she is a threat, then there's something else present. It's not in the room. It's not what's really going on, because there is absolutely no threat to me. Anything that feels like a threat is being brought up by childhood trauma or past experiences or societal conditioning, or, really a wounded inner child that has challenges with the feminine and probably a lot of challenges with the masculine. I don't know about you, but I didn't have great relationship examples growing up. And so I was repeating a lot of the patterns from my childhood in my own marriage, and I didn't even realize it. And when you do that, you get to this place where the marriage starts to drift apart. And it's not drift apart. Sometimes it pulls apart. Sometimes it drifts over time. And sometimes, gets to the point where you're not really connected anymore and you're living like roommates. But what also happens is these days, divorces, especially among older couples, are initiated 70% by women. And I think it's this, I've looked at all the surveys of why women report that they're getting divorced, and I don't believe them. I think that what really is, it's not that I don't believe women. I don't believe how the surveys were conducted, because they never asked the question, did you get divorced because you felt threatened? Did you get divorced because you felt unsafe? They ask all kinds of other tactical questions, and we hang our hat on those surveys as though it's scientific evidence, but it's not. Because if you talk to most women, if you look at the comments in all of my social media posts from women, they are validating, not all of them, but a lot of them are validating and confirming that they don't feel safe, they don't feel heard, they don't feel seen. I get heartbreaking messages from women every week when they say things like, I feel financially taken care of, but emotionally starved. Or I feel, I feel like I'm safe in the world, but when I go home, I don't feel safe. And, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Or they say, when I have emotions, I have to stuff them down and I can't share them because anytime I'm emotional, there's this reaction.
How do you measure learning success? By courses completed or by real improvements to skill, productivity, and revenue? See, learning isn't about passive consumption. Learning is about doing. Docebo makes it easy to create, manage, and deliver learning to every audience across the entire skills journey. Your learners will adapt faster, get more done, and grow their skills, organization, and careers. Docebo, never stop learning.
Action that comes back that makes everything worse. And, I realized through this work that as men, and this is important, and I know, again, in a lot of popular culture, this is heresy, but as men, I think we need to go first. And I think we need to drop the delusion that we can continue to act this way in our relationships and everything is going to work out great. Because when I say repair, what that repair really means to a woman is that the pain for now has stopped. It doesn't mean that they trust it's not going to happen again. In fact, they expect it to happen again. And the more women feel like they're under threat in a relationship, the less they can contribute to that relationship, the less they can be present. And honestly, Govind, talking to women about this, they say things like, I feel like I lost myself. I feel like I have made myself small. I feel like I have put up with things that I shouldn't put up with because I love him, but I don't know how to make this stop. And on the other side of that coin, that's what women say. But then I've talked to, over 100 men personally about this subject. And what those men say is, the relationship started to get challenging and I'm walking on eggshells and I don't know what to do. And they don't understand, hey, every time you elevate the conversation past a form, past the state of neutral, anytime you're bringing too much energy to the situation to solve a problem, you actually become the problem. You are the problem. And so they don't understand. And they say, my wife's drifting away and I feel a lack of connection and there's a lack of intimacy. And so what happens is they collapse into the relationship too. So you have a woman that's suppressing and a man who's collapsing, and that just makes everything worse. And so men get to the point where they're not taking care of themselves and they're not, doing the things that they need to do to stay regulated. And they're trying to fix this problem desperately. And a lot of their lives kind of go sideways. I've talked to men whose businesses have been challenged. Their physiology has been challenged. They're not taking care of themselves. And the same thing happens on the other side. So you have two people now that are dysregulated and they're in this loop where it's getting worse. And that pattern that I mentioned before, I don't think women can actually stop it because we always can take safety away.
Right. It's funny that you say this because it's a lesson that I have two boys and a girl, and I always tell the boys, hey, you guys can put your earbuds in and walk around the park at midnight and feel totally safe. Your sister can't do that at noon.
100%. Govind, I share this with men all the time on our calls where we're making an introduction to the brotherhood and to this concept of masculine containment where they're coming into our initiation. And I tell them, if you talk to women, they will tell you that public staircases, elevators, parking garages, long hallways are all
parking lots.
Yeah, terrifying. Terrifying. And I've had women tell me that when they're in a staircase in a building, if they hear steps above them or below them, they speed up. And when they're walking down a long hallway, they're terrified of who's going to come out of the doors. And when they're in an elevator, they actually are on guard for who gets on next. And they're scanning and trying to understand what's happening. And I ask men, when's the last time you felt like that? Never. Some of them say, oh, there was this one time, but the reality is we do not walk around feeling vulnerable, feeling threatened, feeling objectified, feeling negative energy from around us, which, by the way, objectification is a form of violence. And so all women are subjected to violence almost every day, unless they just stay home. And sometimes that objectification is coming from the home, which is energetic violence and energetic trespass. And so as men, we don't understand the vulnerability with which women live.
So let me ask you this question, because you sort of said for many women in relationships, they don't feel safe and it'll come out as saying, I'm not heard, I'm not seen, I'm not. Is that a proxy? So if you're hearing things like, you're not hearing me, you're not seeing me, you're not, is that the proxy? Is that how we pick it up? Is that the clue?
Yeah, I mean, that's the clue, but also continuous reactivity. You know, if you're with somebody who's always reactive and who always feels a little on edge, and you as a man are walking on eggshells, it's probably because you have a level of attunement to know that she's uncomfortable. And if that's present, you have to know that she's not safe. And the reason, and by the way, I mean, I've talked to a ton of women about this. It's not like I just conjured this up and didn't verify it. And the women that I've talked to have said things like, you know, I don't feel safe and I don't feel seen, just like Katie did. And then I ask them, like, what do you need? And they'll say, I don't know. And here's why. This is the tragic part. This is a part that like really affects me, especially with having 2 daughters and 3 sisters. What I believe is that the majority of women, like, and when I say majority, I don't mean 60%. I mean like way higher than that, like maybe up in the 90s, high 90s, have never truly felt emotionally safe, seen, heard, and validated. Because throughout their lives, when they become emotional, those emotions are seen as a threat. And they're seen as a threat from us, by us, because how many times in your life, Govind, did somebody say, hey, don't cry, man up, pull yourself together, like this isn't the right place for this, don't be so loud, don't be so quiet, like you're making everybody else uncomfortable. And so we've been conditioned that emotions are a threat to neutralize, not what they really are. When a woman is sharing her emotions with you, that is vulnerability. That is her sharing her inside world. That's her communicating outwardly the chaos in her body from a lifetime of feeling unsafe. And so many men react to it in a way that rather than creating safety, it just exacerbates the problem over and over and over again. And the big issue is we don't understand that. You know, I'll give you a great example, Govind. Like this one's intense. Katie and I, more than once, have been in couples therapy. And, you know, you go into couples therapy and the 2 of you are sitting there and there's this third party, you know, proxy for leadership. And the therapist starts asking questions. And as men, we are told this is a safe space where you can express. This is a safe space where you can say what you need to say. And so often in therapy, I unloaded. It was a safe space. I was doing what I was supposed to do. And what I didn't realize is I'm unloading in front of this third person, but my wife is taking on all the impact of my words and my energy and my expression and the way I'm saying it and the volume with which I'm saying it and the animation I'm using. And she's sitting there terrified in this safe space. And the challenge is the vast majority of couples therapists, and again, I'm not saying 60%, I'm saying like 90% plus, don't understand this. Because their conditioning in school is that you treat everybody the same and you have 2 individuals in the room and you treat them the same. But what the therapist doesn't even understand is that, hey, this is causing damage in the moment. Katie and I went to couples therapy so many times and we were fine going in and we came out in rupture, and I never understood it until now. It was because that space, one, there was another leader in the room besides me. And so that causes a level of instability. It's like, hey, my safe place, my person, the person who's supposed to be a rock who can absorb anything for me, my protector, has like created a proxy for leadership, and he's no longer in the lead. He's following. That makes her feel uncomfortable. And then as soon as we start expressing with any level of volume or animation, she's not hearing our words. She's feeling us. She's feeling the expression of anger. She's feeling the violence that we're feeling. And like, let's be real. We feel violence. Don't pretend like you don't. And that situation of her being held in that environment is so contradictory because we're both told it's a safe space and she doesn't feel safe. And so she feels like she's doing it wrong and she's broken and like, why doesn't feel safe in this situation. And the assumption that everybody makes is, oh, well, everybody else feels safe. It must be me who is broken. But that's not real. Yeah. You know, the actual reality is that, you know, in all the situations where I've spoken personally with somebody, if there's any level of volume or aggression or emotional expression from the man above neutral, when there's an emotional situation, that woman is going to always feel unsafe. And so, you know, I started sharing this broadly, and it's pretty intense, like how many women have validated it, and very.
Yeah, I think it's huge, and I can relate to it, Alex, because we had couples therapy too, and I mean we've talked about this before, and I remember my therapist or our therapist taking a slightly different approach, but she would say things like, "Why do you feel like you need to win?" And I was like, "I'm not trying to win. Why do you feel like you need to be right?"
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to be right.
Yeah.
And these were things that I was doing unconsciously. 2023, you go in to ayahuasca, you sit with the medicine, this comes out to you, you start to practice it. And over the last 3 years, you've been developing in private through ceremony this structure, and I'm going to prize inside call it a structure, that you are now bringing out to the world, and you call it masculine containment.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Masculine containment, because I think people are using this word before you and they'll continue to use it after you, and you mean it's something very specific. And I'd like you to define it.
Yeah. Anybody who's using it wrong will soon understand what it is, because I'm on a mission and I'm not going to stop until the world understands what this really means.
For a long time, companies treated their learning programs like overhead. Nice to have, easy to cut. Not anymore. With tech, AI, and skills evolving fast, learning isn't just about HR or mandatory compliance. Learning is a competitive advantage. It's how you keep up. Learning is how you enable sellers, onboard talent, educate customers, and scale faster. It's how you act, adapt, and evolve. And at Docebo, learning is what we do. So for learning that never stops, start with Docebo. Docebo, never stop learning.
Because
Sorry, when you say a mission, I got to tell you, one of the things that I love about my brother Alex Charfen is, do you have your daily checklist around you right now?
That's just...
You are a man who is meticulous with your habits and rituals. We call each other autistic all the time because it's true.
Well, we're proud of it.
We're proud of it. We're super obsessive about these routines that we have. And every day you document yours. So when you talk about a mission, I want people who are listening to this to understand, you've documented the mission. You've dialogued this mission. You've diarized every component of it. Before you speak anything out loud, you have held it deeply in thought and contemplation and in diary. So let's talk about it now. Containment, what does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that reflection, Govind. Just a few days ago, I was looking at some of my notes, and I have like stacks of diaries this big, where it's just blank paper that I've written in, and it has like this whole process kind of spelled out. And when I look at masculine containment, I'll personalize this. So what happened in those early days of us, Katie and I sitting down together, was that without me knowing it, I was creating this masculine container of safety that she had the opportunity to surrender into and share what she was feeling. And I want to talk about masculine and feminine here. Masculine energy is structure and order and process and routine and safety and protectorship. And feminine energy is surrender and creation and softness and receiving. And I recently listened to a podcast with two therapists, and they actually said masculine and feminine energies are bullshit. And it just shows how massive there is a departure in the scientific world from what really matters. Because there's this concept called polarity. And polarity is where when a man is dominant, a woman has the opportunity to surrender. Now, let me just explain that, because everybody gets upset about the word dominant. And what I'm saying...
Yeah, we're not talking about red rooms here.
No. But you can get there if you do this really well. But not like shared red rooms or anything like that. But polarity is amazing and it changes everything. And here's what polarity really means. When a man shows up and dominates himself. And what I mean by that is process what's going on for us. And we show up in a way where we can breathe through what's going on and we can process what's happening in the moment. We transmute the energy that we're feeling from a feeling of unsafety to showing ourselves that we're safe over and over again. And so Katie and I sat down in those early days, and two things were happening. One was she was being seen and validated and heard and understood in a way she never had before. Just as importantly, I was sitting there holding my center, and day by day, I proved to myself that I wasn't under threat. Every day that we sat down and we had a challenging conversation, which at the beginning, most of them were. And when I say challenging, I now look back at it and I'm like, man, it was beautiful. because my wife like opened up and she told me what was really going on, and she shared her inner world, and she shared the fears that she was feeling. And like, oh man, it's beautiful. It's beautiful because she felt vulnerable enough to really tell me what was happening. And in that moment, like what I believe is as she was speaking it out loud, it was leaving her body. And as I sat there and received it in a way where I didn't react and I showed my body I was safe, I was reprogramming an entire lifetime of feeling like emotions were unsafe, day by day, minute by minute. And what was even more extraordinary is that by creating this masculine container and inviting her to surrender, not forcing surrender. Like, God, Govan, there are actual marriage programs out there with these assholes that are teaching them that, God, I want to rip them up. I get a little challenged. I'm not going to lose containment, but man, when I say that they're assholes because they actually teach men how to control their wives. How to like exercise control, how to manipulate, how to say one thing and do another to keep her on her toes.
How to use doctrine to manipulate.
Oh my God,
right?
It's one of the worst.
And across various dogmas, not just one. I mean,
no,
various religious
almost all of them had some
create
part of that. Like really, and except for I haven't found it in Buddhism, but everywhere else, it's like, hey, man controls woman. And, like there's this thing in Christianity called the umbrella of protection. That's like God and the husband and the woman and the kids, which theoretically is fantastic because that's how it should be. The man should be connected to God. The woman should be willing to surrender and to be protected, and the kids should be protected by both of them. But it's interpreted in so many ways as like this, make yourself available. The woman is like property. And
everybody should surrender upwards as opposed to structure and support being constructed at the top and coming down.
And coming down.
And that's the thing. And I love your position about, your idea that you said really quickly that it's the domination is domination of ourselves.
100%.
So what I think is really powerful is to understand that. So when you talk about containment, what's changed for you and Katie over this period of time? Like how have things evolved?
What's changed for me and Katie over this period of time? Everything, absolutely everything. I have the relationship that I always dreamt of. Actually, that's not true. I had the relationship that I didn't have context to dream of. I didn't know it could be like this. I didn't know it could be this good. Because when you sit down in containment, here's what happens. We create as men, we're creating this dominant masculine energy and this container where we allow our spouse or a partner to surrender. And that surrender creates a level of vulnerability and trust and connection. And it creates polarity because when we are dominant and she's allowed to surrender, there's this attraction that occurs. And so I'll share like one of the early days of having one of these meetings with Katie. Like we've talked about it. She remembers. We weren't that many days in, like maybe 4 or 5 days in. And we had a really challenging conversation for me. Like she got a lot out of, and it was one of the conversations where she shared about, like some of the sexual things and some of the trespass and how I made her feel unsafe every time I raised my voice. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, I wanted to invalidate, I wanted to correct, I wanted to tell her she was wrong. And I just sat there thinking, I'm holding my center for a reason because I'm actually being shown these things are true and they're never going to happen again. And so during that entire conversation, I said, you know what, Katie, I accept your truth and I'm so sorry that happened. And I know this is true for you and I'm never going to let it happen again. And is there anything else you need to tell me? Is there anything else you need to say? I want you to say everything that you can about this so that it lands in my body in a way that this is never a reality again. And it was really hard. And at the end of it, I'm like, is there anything else you need to say? And she said, no. And I said, is there anything else? Are you sure? And then there was some more. And then I said, is there anything else you need to say? And she's like, no. And then I asked this question that I hadn't asked before. I said, so what do we need to do to make things okay? Like, every time that there was a conflict between us, my mind went to, how do I fix this? How do I fix it in the moment? How do I build process around it so it never happens again? How do I make sure this doesn't happen? And then I would run around doing all this stuff trying to make it better. And I asked her, is there anything else we need to do? And she's like, no. And I remember thinking, holy crap, I've spent 20 years and so many hours like fixing all these details and building process and structure and making it so she was safe. And this is all I had to do. And we closed because we sit down in like a formal setting. Like for us, it's formal. And like we say an intention at the beginning, we open the space, we have the discussion, and then we close the space and and I turned to get my stuff and Katie like jumped on me. And not in a negative way, like in the absolute best way. She jumped on me and it was extraordinary. And there was this like level of intimacy and connection and excitement. And I'm getting like chills talking about it. It was one of the best nights ever up until then. Like, believe me, things have gotten so much better now. But I remember that happened. And I'm laying in bed that night, Govind, literally staring at the ceiling and thinking, what just happened and how do I make it happen again? And not just because there was intimacy, but because the walls came down and I felt the connection, like not at an intellectual level. I felt the connection in my body. I felt the connection in my chest, I felt this connection that was so unreal. It literally felt unworldly. And what came through over time was masculine containment. And I backed into it. I didn't even know it was what I was doing at the beginning. And there's so much out. There's not a lot about masculine containment, but what's out there is kind of a little weird and a little like off because sometimes it's used in like the BDSM world. I've done a ton of research on sex and intimacy. And there's actually some really interesting stuff when it comes to role play and how can sexualize our greatest fears and process them traumatically. It's like really intense. But masculine containment in that context is like you can stay together while you're playing with somebody else in a role play environment. And I'm like, man, this is such a greater concept than this. This is like minimalizing it and making it kind of weird. And so when I look at masculine containment, the way that I've defined it is it's like one of those words in the dictionary that has one word.
How do you measure learning success? By courses completed or by real improvements to skill, productivity, and revenue? See, learning isn't about passive consumption. Learning is about doing. Docebo makes it easy to create, manage, and deliver learning to every audience across the entire skills journey. Your learners will adapt faster, get more done, and grow their skills, organization, and careers. Docebo, never stop learning.
But several meanings. And so I'll just go through the meanings for you quickly. Like the first one is that masculine containment means as a man, you contain yourself. Let's be honest, Govind, like most of us are so wickedly and wildly uncontained. If you look at leadership in the world today, it is being run by a whole bunch of men that are in their inner child, completely uncontained, shooting from the hip. And I don't need to name names. Just look. It's how it is. And when you look at these uncontained men, like they literally are like causing wars and challenges and killing people and like all types of devastation because they are not contained personally. And so as a man, when you do the work to get in your body and to become embodied and to create grounding and peace and presence, you actually become a safe place that is magnetic. Like it's absolutely magnetic. I know because what I'm doing right now has no explanation for it. We can get into some of the numbers and some of the things that have happened in a second when I'm done with the definition, but like I literally became magnetic online and there's data to show it. And data that was never there before. And so that's the first step is like masculine containment means you become a contained man and your life gets so much easier. I'll just give you an easy, simple example. For most of my, when I was a kid, my dad was a really reactive guy and road rage was like a huge part of every car drive. As soon as somebody cut him off, he was screaming and pounding on the steering wheel. I mean, once we were trying to park in Las Vegas for a big event and a guy pulled in front of my dad and pulled into the parking space and my dad pulled his car into the guy's car, like hit his bumper while he was in the car because he was so mad at him. And then we had to like leave the parking lot in case the police came. And I'm like 13 watching this. And what we don't know is like those patterns of behavior actually get installed in our bodies. So as an adult, I was the same way. Somebody cuts me off and I'm screaming and yelling and like adrenaline and all this. And I'm feeling like actually good about it. So silly. And I've actually...
Look, I think many people will relate
100%
to all parts of that story.
Well, in this, Govind, here's what's interesting. I now use road rage incidents as a way to rewire my nervous system. Somebody cuts me off and I breathe. Like, okay, you're feeling anger. Like, let's transmute that anger. Let's process it. Let's metabolize it, not let it leak out like aggression and not bring up the adrenaline and get my body all reactive and check out of the current moment. And so that's containment. And containment can be practiced. Containment can be learned. Containment can be developed over time. The second definition that I have for masculine containment is what I call reactive containment. And in a relationship, here's what often happens. And I'll relate like a recent story. So in the past, if I would walk into a room and Katie was emotional, if she was crying or if she was like irritated or reactive, my first thought was, how do I get out of here? Like, I do not, and what I would do is one of four things that were absolutely horrible. So the first thing, she would tell me what's going on and I would tell her, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. That's invalidation. She's not seen, she's not heard. The second thing, she would say, this is how I'm feeling. And I'd be like, well, here's what I'm going to do so you never feel that way again. I'm going to build process around it, structure around it. That turns her into a project, not the person standing in front of me. And again, she feels invalidated. The third thing I would do is withdraw. I'm out of here. Like, okay, you sit with your emotions. I'll be back when you're not like this. I'll give you time. I'll give you space. Like, I remember a therapist telling me, when she's emotional, you need to give her time and space. Again, that therapist didn't understand. That therapist was giving me absolutely the wrong direction. I still remember sitting in the office and hearing it from this guy in Florida. And the fourth thing I would do is she would bring emotions, then I would bring emotions. And I'd match her. And oftentimes, if I'm honest, I wasn't matching her, I was exceeding her. And all four of those things were an assault on her nervous system. They were violence to her nervous system. So now, when I say reactive containment, it's when you come into a situation like that, you contain your reactivity. And instead, so today, Katie doesn't get emotional that much. So I don't really do this a lot. But my 19-year-old daughter recently moved out of the house. And there was a day where Katie was having a lot of trouble with it and like processing. And that's an emotional event. It's not easy to do that. And to have a kid move out, like there's so many things that change. It's such a massive transition. And I walked into her bedroom and she was sitting on the edge of the bed crying. And in that moment, I realized, holy crap, dude, saying what you know now, you would have walked out. And instead, I went and I sat down next to her and I said, hey, gorgeous, like, what's going on? Tell me what's happening. I've got you. So the energy went from, I don't want you to do this, and how do I make it stop, to, I've got you, and I'm here for you, and you're safe. And that difference, I sat there and I asked Katie questions about what was going on with Reagan, and she shared with me and she emoted, and, some of it was like very expressive, a lot of inner child feelings present. And, I sat there while she got it out. And what happens every time, like when she's allowed to have that space, that emotional processing, like we're in a situation where the situation didn't change. Reagan's still moving out. But then she had time and space to express herself with me, not time and space where I leave her alone. And by sitting there, by the end of the conversation, I'm like, is there anything else you need to tell me? No. Is there anything we need to do? No. How are you feeling now? And she's like, I feel really so much better. And thank you. And she's hugging me and we're like cuddling on the bed. And it's, again, this moment of intimacy in the face of a life situation that hasn't changed, but the feelings have been processed. They've been transmuted. They've been metabolized. I'm sitting there proving to myself that she is safe in the moment and I am not under threat. And she's being allowed to express herself in a way that makes her feel seen, makes her feel heard. And that rewires childhood trauma. And that rewires an entire lifetime of being invalidated and feeling unsafe. And so that's reactive containment. And then the third one, and this is something that I train men to do, and holy crap, Govind, the results have been so insane. I started, like, everything I'm saying months ago was theoretical. It was like, here's my theory. This is what I think happened. Well, then I started talking to men and sharing with friends and sharing with people who would listen. And 9 weeks ago, I posted on social media and I had 3 guys all at the same time contact me within like an hour. And I'm like, man, I can't do one-on-one calls this week with these guys. I was doing 1-hour calls with everybody. I'm like, hey, can I put you guys all in the same call and we can talk together? And they said yes. So we got on this call and they all had the same issue that I'm talking about. And they all had marriages that were experiencing serious rupture. And I shared this with them. And I shared eventually, like I told them I'd work with them for 10 weeks. This week is actually where we close that container and like we start a new chapter with them. And I think it was the third week or fourth week where I said, guys, here's what I want you to do. I want you to actually call your partners into active containment. This is not reactive. This is active. We're going to sit down and I want to hear from you. I want to understand what's going on with you. I want you to tell me what's happening for you. And so they started doing that. And Govind, like marriages that were in massive rupture, started shifting. The three guys all had some serious challenges in their marriages. The first one was newlyweds. The other two had been married, I think similar times, like somewhere around 7 years. And one of them, the relationship is still challenged, but he's in a place where he's grounded and he understands he's okay and he understands that things are going to get better for him. And there's still some hope for the relationship, but it hasn't resolved completely yet. The newlywed guy was having some rupture and challenges with his spouse, and that's completely gone. In fact, after a few active containment sessions, she turns to him, Govind, and says, hey, you've like really been doing a lot of work here and, you're really supporting me. How do I support you? And I remember him getting on the call that week and he's like, guys, you're not going to believe what happened. And he told us that. And I'm like, well, there's like validation of the theory. And the third guy, three of these guys, and it's so divinely orchestrated that I got to work with them because they showed up every week. They applied the concepts. They acted with integrity and intentionality and discipline. And the third guy, whose marriage was like really in a challenging place. In fact, I think I remember on the first call that I had with them, I said, what would ideal look like? And he had been in a place where they were having sex maybe 6 times a year. They were almost in constant rupture. He was in that place of walking on eggshells. His wife always felt dysregulated. He felt dysregulated. And I remember him getting on a call and he's like, guys, we actually had intimacy this week and it was really amazing, like different. And he was kind of shell-shocked because on the first call I said, what would ideal look like? And he's like, ideally, I'd love to like sit on a couch and have her throw her legs over me and just feel comfortable and, just feel safe. And like, I really want to connect with her. And he said a bunch of other stuff. And then he didn't say like, I'd like intimacy to return. And I'm like, hey, wouldn't it be great if you also had intimacy? And he was like, yeah, I didn't even think about that. So it was so far from reality for him that
For a long time, companies treated their learning programs like overhead. Nice to have, easy to cut. Not anymore. With tech, AI, and skills evolving fast, learning isn't just about HR or mandatory compliance. Learning is a competitive advantage. It's how you keep up. Learning is how you enable sellers, onboard talent, educate customers, and scale faster. It's how you act, adapt, and evolve. And at Docebo, learning is what we do. So for learning that never stops, start with Docebo. Docebo, never stop learning.
when I said, what would ideal like, he didn't even
It was
think
like,
it was
do you
possible.
believe in Santa Claus?
Yeah,
It was
100%.
seriously.
And so I love this story so much. And so he started entering into both reactive and active containment with his wife. And he did practices that I shared with them where he created containment for himself. And I think it was week 7 where he got on the call and he's like, hey, brothers, I have something to share with you. My wife's pregnant. And I was like, holy crap, this is such a turnaround. And he said, as soon as my wife told me she was pregnant, I said, I promise you it's going to be different this time. And his wife said, it already is. And like to go from a place where they're barely talking and there's no intimacy to creating so much safety that they get pregnant again. And they're both completely and totally excited about it. And like the best part of this story is 3 weeks ago, I launched my second container. We're 2 calls in. This week will be the 3rd call. And I really expected to have like 10 to 15 guys. The first one was 3.
10
like,
to 15.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, if I can get these guys to tell a few guys and I get some people off social media, I'll have 10 to 15. I'm like really pushing for 10 to 15. And then when I say that like you become magnetic when you're contained, I just continued to post my thoughts on social media. And I kind of write like, I don't know, like it kind of feels like poetry to me. And it's like poetry with scientific data in it. I don't know. I'm super weird. Only an autistic guy would do that. And I started having so many men reach out to me that when I started this current container 2 weeks ago, we started with, or 3 weeks ago, we started with, I think 100 men in the container and 89 showed up to the first call. And then there were some people who had like gotten links and been invited, but joined during that week. It's closed now. We're not allowing anybody else in for a lot of reasons, because they'd be behind and I really want them in the next one. But we ended up with 111 people in the group, including me. So
How
not
many
only
countries?
did we get
How many countries? How many countries? How many countries?
I think it's 9 or 10. I think it might be 11 though. I haven't gotten like an inventory of all the countries, and it's so interesting, Govin. So first we get this magic number 111. So like the angels are with me. And if anybody's offended by that, I'm sorry, but I totally believe in like synchronicity and coincidence is not just coincidence. It's like, it's feedback from the universe, feedback from my higher power. And one of the guys in the container is the guy who got pregnant with his wife. It's his father.
It's insane.
So he recommended his dad, and his dad got into the container.
Intense.
And when I talked to him, his dad, he said, I was like, man, I'm like so glad to have you. I'm so honored to have you. It's like the first legacy, only it's like a reverse legacy because it was son to dad, not dad to son. And I said, why are you here? What brought you here? And he said, well, I mean, I've been watching my son and he's completely changed. I've been watching the relationship and they show up completely different. And I know I need this. And so like the synchronicities and the coincidences. And like earlier I said, when you become contained, you become magnetic. I've published on social media, on Facebook since 2012, and I think Instagram since 2013.
I want to hold these numbers for a second, though, Alex. Hold the numbers for a second, because this is so. So one of the things that I think is really super important for us, what I want to do is I also want to relate this to this thing that, so in the similar period of time that you've been working on this, coming at it a different way, I had a massive rupture in my business, and I had to reinvent myself in a lot of ways. I lost myself in a lot of ways. It was pretty dark in that period of time. And you were,
I mean, by the way, we did it at the same time.
yeah. And I'll get emotional because you were there beside me every week. We worked through what you were going through and what I like. We were leaned hard into each. And we've had great seasons over the last decade. Like, don't get me wrong, we've had massive success, but there was a season when it's bizarre. You and I have had this thing over and over in our lives, going back. We're both born in 72. Like, going back to when we were born, that we've had this similar story arc. And so as we leaned in, and I was refining these principles, and I have this core belief around focus, align, act, and I had this really businessy. It sounded really good back in the day. I shared it with you recently. It was like, oh man, that doesn't sound very good. But I shared the updated version, which is focus on what you want. Really put yourself in a 3D movie of what you want, and you should be able to see it, feel it, hear it, touch it, smell it. Everything, all of your senses should be activated, and then align with where you are. And here's a really big thing that I think is really important as part of what you said is aligning. I used to say align with where you are is keep everybody aligned to your mission, vision, and values. People should be communicated the vision. It's bullshit. It's really align yourself to the terrain that you're on, because you're on a traverse and that terrain changes all the time. And a place to start is cleaning the lens and loving yourself just the way you are, being proud of yourself just the way you are. And that's dominating ourselves. Dominating ourselves is to just accept ourselves just the way we are, and then act. Be 100% all in and release the outcome. Listen in containment, be in containment, contain yourself. That's reactive containment to a certain degree. But then on top of that, I started to build this other piece that I think was really missing from that, which was, this magnetic, I call it the magnetic growth aura. And both of us got kind of woohoo at the same time, which is not surprising. We all got energetic and weird. And in this magnetic growth aura, I started to put it together as a structure, not as a behavior. It doesn't work if it's a behavior. It's not something you do.
Live.
It's something you are. It's something you build.
It's something you live. You have to embody it.
Right? You have to embody it. And there are 4 pillars, and they all rest on each other, and they're all aligned. First of all, confidence. It's permission without performance. It's this idea that confidence in the aura model isn't bravado, isn't bravery, isn't machoism. It's the permission to act without rehearsing your worth. It's belief before evidence. It's being yourself before the world recognizes it for you. Right? And then the incongruence is is like the trust building pillar. It's the integrity as a load bearing capacity. It's the congruence of predictability under pressure. How do you show up when things don't work out versus when they do work out? And are you prepared to say the quiet things that are true? Like, for example, you run into somebody on the street. How many times have we each said it? You run into somebody on the street you haven't seen for a long time. They say, "Oh, this was so great. It would be great to see you again." And you say politely, "Yeah, that would be great." And I'm fucking lying to you right now, right? Because you need to be experienced as reliable in those quiet moments. In those quiet moments, saying, "It was really nice to see you today." It doesn't mean that you're being an asshole. It doesn't mean that you're being harsh. But congruence not just in your thoughts and words, say what you do what you say, but it's got to go all the way to your spirit, all the way to your soul. And then calm is treating your nervous system as a leadership asset. And I don't mean leadership in the business context necessarily just by itself, but it's your ability to hold yourself in calm, hold complexity without chaos, allow chaos to occur in your presence and approach it with wonder and mystery. And it's sort of like a direct echo of your containment language in so many ways. And then finally, contribution, direction versus discharge, right? It's not just about growth for growth's sake. It's not multiplying. It's not scale. It's not becoming better for better's sake. It's distinguishing that you're becoming better for contribution's sake. That when when all of your pillars grow together, your contribution becomes big. Now, here's the thing that I think is really, really fascinating. In my mind, I keep on telling you this, that you're embodying these pillars. Like, it's magical. You and I, and I've not been great about this publicly, like, because I'm not on Facebook really. I mean, yes, there's a ton of content that comes out for Paper Napkin on Facebook, but I'm not there. But you are, and I'll read your stuff. And then we'll talk about it, and I'll go, "Oh my God, this is amazing! You're just going to see this magnet open up, and blah 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 blah." And then you, and there are literally 3 other people that I've been working with simultaneously, or talking to over this period of time. All of them are having this exponential, unbelievable growth for impact. It's not growth for growth's sake; it's growth for impact. So the magnet is on. And energetically, what is coming into your life? And again, for people who don't know who you are, you've built multiple fast-growing companies. You've been ahead of the curve almost every single time that you've done anything that I've ever known that you've done. Although you didn't invent relationships.
It feels like AI can do everything. Write the code, analyze the data. It can even suggest your next move. But there's one thing AI can't do. Think for your people. With AI, the real advantage isn't the tools. Anyone can do that. The real advantage is human readiness. That's why the smartest companies aren't asking, "Do we have AI?" They're asking, "Can our people keep up?" To build a learning program that keeps your people ahead, learn with Docebo. Docebo. Never stop learning.
So clear. Like, you're very careful to tell me how many things you've invented in the past.
Reinventing.
Sorry. But the point being that you're ahead of the curve on so much of this stuff all the time. And here you are once again in this other environment. But these results, this feedback, this energetic feedback that you've created, this sort of, and I also believe that when you give away what you create, the great work that you create, the work, when we are our best for ourselves, when we are in the world, when we are for ourselves what we need, when we are for others what we need for ourselves. That didn't sound right. We are our best in the world when we are for others what we need most ourselves. You needed this, you've created this, and then you've given it away.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process that you've given it away, right, you've created this unbelievable blockchain of reciprocal energy that is flowing towards you at unprecedented rates. Like, it's insane what's happened. So you've always had a strong social presence, but that's not true compared to what's going on right now. So what are those numbers now? What's the evidence that you've got?
So I just wanted to say one thing, Govan. There was this ayahuasca ceremony that I was in, And this was back when I still set in like my intention for the ceremony. These days, whenever I sit with this incredible teacher, this divine intelligence, I usually say, show me what I need to see, tell me what I need to hear, and help me become of service. And then I just accept whatever's there. But back then I was still like saying, show me what I need to do. And I want to know what I do next. And how do I turn this into something? And I had this ayahuasca ceremony where the message the entire time was, you already are the person you're trying to become. And it was like confronting. Like, what do you mean? What do I do with that? Like, I've been doing personal development and striving and doing all this stuff my whole life. And I'm like, I sat with that in quiet. Like, does that really mean? It means the solutions are within me and I can figure this out and I can understand this. And so I figured this out and started sharing. And the first post that I made back on social media kind of went like semi-viral for me. It was like 10,000 views. I was totally shocked. Like my average post views were like a couple hundred, not 10,000. And then I started posting more. And in a 28-day period on Facebook, we had like over 3 million views, all organic. I have someone helping me like do the organization and post on Instagram, but we just, in the last 28 days on Instagram, we're over like 2 million views and 48,000 interactions or something and like 10,000 shares.
And just to be clear, you didn't hire any firms from, the Far East or anything like that.
Somebody put it in.
I joke that I get an offer a week offering you these kinds of results.
Yeah.
But this is real. This is just stuff that you're putting out in the world, and this is the feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I have a guy who goes on Facebook and copies my text posts and turns them into carousels because I'm not great at technology, and so then I approve all of them and we write a caption and we put it out, and it's gone crazy. My whole career on Instagram, I think like maybe 10 years ago, I got to somewhere between 24 and 26,000 followers, and it's just stalled there for 10 years. Like we got close to 26, and then we'd come back to 25, and then we'd go under 25, then back to 26, and like never really crossed 26. And in the last, I think it's 7 or 8 days, we've gained 10,000 followers. And the amount of activity on my Instagram is like, it's legit overwhelming. There's been thousands of comments, tens of thousands of interactions, and like so many shares and reposts that when I look, the numbers, I think I pulled them up. The numbers are kind of nuts. So there's just a single post that has been shared a couple million times. And then this is me showing how little I know about Instagram, but like the attention has been crazy. Okay, I just got into my professional dashboard. It's opening. And so, or at least it's pretending to open. Since December 27th to January 25th, 2.3 million views, 197,000 interactions on Instagram, 7.8 thousand followers, and I've shared 99 posts.
99.
So it's not like we went out with like a million pieces of content like so many people do. It's been super like directive and intentional. And
it's not the 300 pieces of content per week.
No,
it's not a bunch of paid advertising. It's real messages and real people. And just give me a snapshot of the kinds of things that people are saying to you. Now, they're sliding into your DMs too, right? Like these are not just public comments.
No.
People are sliding into your DMs big time.
Yeah.
And I mean, the containment, the confidence, the structure you've been able to hold to have these conversations, I admire you so much for this. You and I have talked about this every week. I'm checking in on you like a madman going, okay, you okay? Because you're holding a lot. And man, it's so powerful to watch. It's so powerful to be close to. I love watching you from this close. Like I love you becoming who you really are like this. Like you are becoming for the world what you and I talk about all the time. And it's beautiful to see. But what are the kinds of things that complete strangers are coming in and saying to you?
Well, before I say that, I just want to like make it clear for everybody listening and watching, like you're so much of a part of the foundation that has allowed me to do this. Like our connection on a weekly basis, the space to be held in vulnerability, the space to express my feelings and to be heard and seen and validated has made it so like, I know I can do this because I know it's like one text or phone call away and you'll drop everything if I really need you to. So I want to make that clear.
Thanks, brother. And I feel the same way, man. Like,
yeah,
I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for you. my
same
daughter.
here, man.
We've been leaning hard on each other over this period of time, so I'm grateful for that.
Forever.
Yeah.
It feels like lifetimes. But you can go to my posts and see the comments. Like, women are sharing in a open and transparent way what I'm talking about, and women are saying things like, I went to a church where the pastor told me I had to have sex with my husband whenever. That makes a woman's body harden. It makes her soul, like, hurts her soul. It hurts her heart. It like makes it so she can't express love. So she feels violated. So like, that's violence. There's women who are expressing that they've been in relationships where men don't listen to them, don't see them, don't hear them. And it's heartbreaking because I know that's how Katie felt. And there's men who are posting on my posts and saying, like, I've tried everything. I've gone to couples therapy. I did therapy individually. Like, I can't make this problem go away in my house. And I get on calls with them and I explain what I explained to you about, like, this is the pattern and she's not going to hurt you. And they go, fuck, like, why didn't anybody tell me this? And people, there's this assumption in the world, and I understand it, by the way, I understand it. There's this assumption that men don't care and that men don't want to improve and that they're selfish and they're mean and all these things. And what I see is a man who is in his triggered inner child, who has no tools or resources, doesn't know what to do next, and ends up in this reactive behavior and then comes back and tries to repair it and ends up looking like a narcissist because it's like causing conflict and love bombing, but they're not meaning to do that. What's happening is their inner child becomes present and they lose control. And then they go back afterwards and they're like, shit, I will do anything I can to fix this. And that pattern makes them look like complete and total narcissists. It looks like bipolar, and it's not. What it really is like unprocessed trauma and unregulated emotions. And women are telling me so often, Govind, like, this is the most heartbreaking messages I get. I get messages that go something like this. This is a composite. I've been married to my husband for 20 years. He's my person. He's the most important person in the world to me. We've had kids together. He's been with me through so many things. But when I try to get close to him, my body says no. And like when a woman says that, oh God, I feel it so deeply. And what it says to me is that, like, she is affected at the nervous system level. Like, this is science, this is biology. And the fact that not anyone out there in the medical world has seen it is so easy to understand, because if you look at medical science, women are basically overlooked. Until recently, they weren't included in any clinical trials because they have this thing called a menstrual cycle that throws off results. And so they just get the same thing that we get. If you look at women, they're so overlooked when it comes to medical science. Like, if we had a 28-day period cycle with all the hormonal fluctuations, I guarantee you there would be so much research around it. We understand the male body so much more than we understand the female body, because the male body is a proxy for the female body. And so we don't really pay attention to women in the medical. And we overlook them and gaslight them and dismiss them and tell them everything is fine, just like they hear all over the place. And, now that I've started putting this out, like, women feel seen, women feel heard, and they still say, like, how do I get my husband to lean into this? And I want to answer that question for every woman listening. I think the most important moments in my life, and one of the most gracious things that my wife ever did for me, was just be real. And say, Alex, like, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. Something needs to change, or I can't do this anymore, because it woke me up. And I think so many women are afraid to just, like, lay it out there and put it on the line and give the ultimatum. But what I want them to know is, if you don't, this is not going to get better, because you can't create emotional safety and stability on your own. You can try all you.
Hey, want a cookie? Oh, I know you just ate, so you're craving something a little sweet. Besides, one cookie isn't gonna kill you. How about half? Just a bite? Bite it. Bite it. Bite it.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. Your affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on a path to successful weight loss by quieting food noise.
Bite it.
Shh. Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
Want, and it will not happen. Women ask me that all the time. I'm in a relationship with a really reactive man. How do I create emotional safety for myself? And I'm like, you can't. You can't. I'm sorry. Like he has to go first. He has to stop the reactivity. Like what I feel like they're asking me is how do I stay in this chaos, in this storm with this man who escalates and makes me feel unsafe and makes me feel like there's violence present? And how do I, in my body, make that okay? And I don't believe you can. I really don't. And what I know the solution is that as men, we need to become the man that walks into the storm and calms it. We need to be the man who walks into the room and changes the energy through his regulation. We need to be the man that when you take a deep breath, her body is in such a level of attunement to you that she takes a deep breath and comes with you. And don't think for a moment that every man can't do this. I hold out the undying belief that with the right tools and the right process and the right understanding of what's going on, any man can become this man. It's not just me. It's not just you. It's all of us. But we have been conditioned and traumatized and told the wrong thing and told we're doing good when we're really screwing things up. And if we understand this process, that entire paradigm can shift to where we stop being the problem and we become the solution. And when a man, like I can tell you this, in those early days and even today, when I hold containment for my wife, a lot of what I hear sometimes from men is, and sometimes from women is like, does he have to do all of the work? It's like he's doing all the work. It's so hard for him, so hard for me when men express it. And here's what I can tell you. You hold containment as a man, you weather that emotional storm, you carry yourself and hold yourself to the other side, you will feel a feeling of masculine power. You will feel your masculine core. You will feel the capacity you have in the world, and you will increase your ability to do everything around you and everything you've always wanted to do. I know because I experienced it myself, and I'm watching it with this group of men that I'm working with, and it is the most beautiful and extraordinary and inspiring thing I've ever seen. So don't ever believe that this is how it has to be, because we're men. And anything you've ever cared about and done over time has gotten easier. And anything you've ever cared about and meant something to you, you've made it better. And so take that energy into this situation. Take that reality into this situation. And don't deny yourself the greatest initiation a man can ever have. In this world, we don't have initiations anymore. And I think we need them. And I believe wholeheartedly that the initiation you need, you've already chosen. It's the woman sitting in front of you. If you can get into a space where you hold her emotions and you help her process and you are the solution, it's not just that you're doing the work, you are becoming something entirely different. When you become contained, the power over force you will feel, the capacity you will feel, the ability you will feel is unlike anything else.
And I think a really powerful acid test to that is in the millions of messages and interactions that you've received over this period of time. Not everybody is, hey, Alex, this is awesome.
No.
I'm all over this. This is great. Thank you for saving my life with this one tweet. I'm so happy now. I think some people have come at you pretty hard. And
really mad at me.
One of the things that I've been really watching you do in a way that is amazing is holding containment, holding your aura, even when people don't agree, especially when people don't agree, especially when there are these dynamics and chaos of disagreement. And like some of the messages are outright hateful. And the way you've approached them is with pure love. And you can only do that from a place of self-love. If you're not grounded in who you are in that moment, if you're not aligned in your body, spirit, and soul, and mind in that moment, you can't respond that way. If you're not contained, you can't respond that way. And this is this reactive containment that I see you exhibit out in the world. And look, test me on this. Go check Alex out on social and pick any one of the threads. Like, you don't have to pick the one with a million views. Pick any one of them and you've got somebody coming at you with daggers.
Yeah, most of them. I've got a great story about that, Govin. So, a few weeks ago, there was this guy named Kevin who started commenting on my posts, and he was sharing some of the really, what I consider somewhat toxic beliefs in the red pill world. There's like so much that blames women and so much that gives men like really wrong information. But he was doing it in a way that like felt like there was intellectual capacity behind it. I felt like it was somebody who was actually really intelligent, but had gotten the wrong information and gone down the wrong road. And so in the comments on posts, we are writing novels back and forth to each other, because right now I'm learning from every comment. I'm absorbing information. Like I don't know that I'm going to ever, in the future answer every single comment that I get, but these days I do. And we went back and forth, and I like, with containment, but with also boundaries, shared what I believed with him and told him why I thought what he believed needed to be adjusted. And over the course of a few weeks and him commenting on my posts, I started moving him in the other direction. And he would say things like, "Oh, I've never seen it like that." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting in." And he would say, "Didn't have that perspective before." And this is a guy who spent 18 years studying relationships. He's worked with the Gottmans. He's worked with like a lot of the well-known people. He knows a tremendous amount of relationships, but he also has been infected by this like red pill garbage, or was. And it got to the point where I think it was last week or the week before. No, but the week before last. He and I got on a call, and I'm like, I got on the call and I said, "Listen, man, I'm going to make you a believer." And he's like, "It's so many ways you already have." And then we went through the red pill stuff, and I gave him my answers to it. And
what is red pill stuff, just for anybody who doesn't?
It's like the worst thing in the world. So there's this culture, there's this cult. Let's be honest. It's a cult of men who have taken science and female behavior and statistics and wrapped this really, what I would say, like demented, distorted, evil view of women and relationships, where they break down all the behaviors to some need that women have, and like they're subconscious, and they're attacking men. And so this is how, as a man, you respond to that. And they teach like manipulative bullshit techniques to make women feel uncomfortable and make them come towards you. It's kind of like, it's a lot of the old pickup artist crap that has now turned into red pill, because the pickup artists grew up and now they're screwing up relationships instead of just men who are trying to get into a relationship. Like that's really what it is.
Yeah, it's just moving out of the bar and into the house
and into the bedroom, honestly, and so we got on a call, and by the end of the call, he's like, "I'm just so mind blown," and so here's a guy who was opposition, and now he's part of the team, and he's actually in the current container, and he's like one of the first people to show up on the calls. And so like, I could have attacked him. I could have said, "You're wrong." I could have said, "That's ridiculous," but I didn't. I just gave him like direct, boundaried answers that shared my opinion as strongly as I could without overstepping a line of using too much energy. And sometimes when I'm writing a comment back to somebody, if I feel activated in my body, I'll stop and go sit down and breathe. I'll go for a walk. I'll do something else, and then come back and look at that again and say, okay, like, what's the right way to do this? And so even in that case where somebody was really coming at me, now not only are they a believer, like publicly coming at me and getting support from other men, now he's part of the movement.
It's amazing. Is there any part of your life that has not been impacted with this?
No, it changes everything. It literally changes everything.
Physically, are you healthier?
I've lost like 40 pounds of body fat. My blood work has resolved. I'm in the best shape I've ever been. My cardio is insane. I'm stronger than I've ever been.
And by the way, Alex and I are both 53 years old. He looks like he's 23 and I look like I'm 53.
Well, it's funny that you bring up age, Govin, because I use like the InBody scale and the tonal workout system and like all these different things that give me metrics. And where I can give metrics, I'm in the top 1% on everything. Like body composition, top 1% of 50-year-old males. Among 20-year-olds, I'm on the top like 3 or 4%. And on the tonal, I'm in the top 1% of all users. It doesn't matter what age. And so like where I can gather a metric, and my blood work has gone from...
And by the way, there aren't many metrics that are gatherable. There's Alex isn't trying to gather.
No, but I go find them. So I get my blood work done by a company that gives you your biological age according to your blood work. And according to my blood work, I'm 53. My blood work is 32. And so I'm like so far ahead of the game. But here's why I think that is. I'm not triggering myself anymore. So much of what we do is we trigger our own nervous system. It's so sad, Govin. I have friends that are brilliant, that I really care about.
You're a small business owner, but that means you're a lot of other things too. Accountant, handyman, payroll specialist, and IT expert, just to name a few. So how about you let Capitus make at least one thing easy for you? Capitus is the home of small business financing made simple. Compare multiple offers at once for business loans, lines of credit, equipment financing, revenue-based financing, and more. No appointments, no waiting days for approval. Up your cash flow and grow your business with Capitus today. Start an application at Capitus.com. That's Capitus.com.
That for some reason have gone down this rabbit hole of sitting on the internet and yelling at people and arguing and feeling like they're accomplishing something. Like, for me, the way I look at it, and like a lot of people disagree with this, and I totally can hold space for that, but when I look at current events and what's going on in the world and all that stuff, I learned a long time ago that I don't need to know the day-to-day play-by-play. It's just unnecessary. And if anything important happens or anything significant is going on, somebody's going to tell me about it. I'll know. Indulge in that, like, nervous system dysregulation. I think so many of the guys that I know, like really good friends, are in this place where they are repeating the energetic of their childhood by keeping themselves completely and totally dysregulated every day. And it's just unnecessary. And so when you say, has any part of your life not changed? It's like, it's completely changed everything.
Love you, brother. Thank you for sharing this with me.
Man, thank you for this time and this conversation. I knew it was going to be good, but man, whenever you and I talk, it's when the best stuff comes out.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm so glad.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. What's that?
I said, I'm so glad we recorded this one.
This is the 1 in 400 that we actually record.
Seriously.
All right. Love you, brother.
Thanks, Govin. Wait, can we tell people where to go?
Yeah. Tell them where to go.
Okay, so if anybody wants to get involved with the Brotherhood Society, you can go to thebrotherhoodsociety.com, and there's a form there that's our wait list, and it's 2026 right now. In March, we're opening the next container. I'm shooting this time for 300 men, and so we're opening in March to do our introductory interviews, and then we're going to officially start in April. So if you go to thebrotherhoodsociety.com and put your information in there, you'll get
It'll be in the link's going to be in the show notes and everywhere else that this goes. So make sure that you check down in the links for a direct link right to the Brotherhood Society. And look, I'm not going to. Alex is a guy who knows how to make a contribution, but this isn't going to be an open door forever. This is going to start to be something, because he's added so much value, that is going to be a pay to play. But for now, you're welcoming people into the container. And I want people to understand that this is a gift. The problem with a lot of us as men is that we're great at giving gifts, but not great at receiving. So receive this gift, sign up, take the steps. Your life will be changed. I know mine is, thanks to you and your presence in my life, brother. So thank you.
And same to you, Govin. Thank you, brother.
As this conversation comes to a close, you might notice that there was nothing here asking you to become louder or tougher or more certain. If anything, it may have invited you to be more steady, more stable, more you. Because what Alex shared today isn't a tactic to apply. It's a capacity to develop. You don't have to decide what it means right now, or really tomorrow either. You might find a moment from this episode that surfaces later, in a conversation that slows down, in a breath that you maybe didn't take before, in a space between reaction and response. And when that happens, you'll recognize it. Not because someone told you what to do, because your body already knows. Masculine containment doesn't ask you to control anyone else. It asks you to lead yourself, hold your own center, and become a place where safety, truth, and connection can exist at the same time, in the same place. And as you step back into your day, you don't need to force anything. Just notice where you already have more capacity than you thought you did. Notice where presence changes the room, where your presence changes the room. And notice what happens when you give stability away, on the other hand. And if something in this conversation stayed with you, I'd invite you to do what we do here with Paper Napkin Wisdom. Write it down, capture it on a napkin, and share the thought with someone else. Share the gift that shifted you with someone else. And that's how things multiply. Wisdom doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It just needs to be lived. I invite you to live this and to share this with someone who needs to hear it. Make it a great day.